Hello, Dr. Ron Eglin here, and a little bit of a video on Python debugging. And I got to thank one of my students for this one because they gave me a perfect example to demonstrate the need for being able to run debugging and actually line by line execution of a program. So first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to show the program that they're running, which is the interpolation program, and the problem that they're getting. So if I go ahead and I highlight everything here and I hit run, I'll control enter it. Boom, I come over here to the console and I get this output. But the output isn't what was expected. And let's look at what they were actually looking at here. They have an array of time, an array of rain, and I have actually set this value of q equal to 5, which by the way is in the time array. It's index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's index 4 there. So if time of x, so in other words, what's going to happen is it's going to go into this x equals range 0 to 7, and then when it gets to x is equal to 4, it's going to say if time of x is equal to q, well, I've entered a 5, I've entered a 5, it's going to print out these two values. And if you look over at the console, it does just that. User time request is the exact time index of 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, the fourth one over. And that's what that prints out. And then cumulative rainfall at time index x. All right, so cumulative rainfall at time index x, 3 is 1.3. And it actually does that perfectly too, 0, 1, 2, 3. However, it also prints out upper time index is 4 and lower time index 3 and those time values. So in other words, it's actually executing what's inside the else. And that was like, oh my gosh, how can it do what's inside the if and what's inside the else? Well, the reality is when x is equal to 4, it's not. However, when you check to see if the time index was equal to 3 and it printed this out, it's still in the for loop. So the next time around in the for loop, the time index of x is now equal to the next value up, which is greater than q, and now it prints this out. All right, well, I'm not going to teach you. I'm not going to give you, well, I gave you the fish, but I'm also going to teach you how to fish. So let's look at how you could have actually done this, how you could have figured out what was going on here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight this code, and I'm going to go up here to the debug menu, and I'm going to hit debug, which also, by the way, would be Control F5. And now I'm going to move over here. I'm going to bring the console a little bit wider, move it up just a little bit so you can see it. And now, as you see there in the IPDB, if you've got I'm now in Python debug mode. Well, what exactly is that? Well, let's look at the debug. I'm reading this down. Let's look at the debug menu here. It's got step, step into, step return, continue, and stop. Well, stop's going to get me out of the debug mode, but really what I want to do here is I want to step. So if I were to use the Control F10 option here, which is step, it's going to go, whoops, Control F10, and I should have, okay, so now if you see what it did right there, that arrow that was here on this line now moved down this line. It actually executed that line. Right now I'm going to actually risk it all and hit Control F10 by hand because my recorder also might capture Control F10. So I'm hoping this doesn't break anything. And look at that. It now goes to the next line right there, and the next line, and the next line. Now I'm going to run through here for the 4. It should say, okay, I'm going to go in here. It's not, that's going to be a false. That's going to be a false. I'm back to the 4. And the value of the x is going to move, it's going to increment. And you can see up here now that the value of x is actually shown up there. So now I'm going to Control F10 again. Now the value of x has moved on to 1 because my variable explorer is showing you the value of x is 1. And it also shows the value of q is 5. All right, so and that, what I don't have here is the time of x, but I could actually see that time of x 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay, but the time of x is going to be 0. Okay, so now what you can do is you can look at the values of the variable explorer and look at the line of code that is actually getting executed. Well, I'm going to kind of have to move through this a little bit faster here because I'm really not interested in anything until it gets to the x equals 3. Now, when x equals 3, actually, is x equals 3 or x equals 4? Let's go. Let's just keep going. Control F10. This time, okay, it went from there, and the actual value was equal to Q, so it did the printing. Notice that the arrows point to the line that's getting executed. All right, so I'm going to get the two outputs. It's going to go over here, and now it's going to jump back because the else was not going to get executed, and it's going to go for the x in range 0 to 7 again. And voila, it's going to go, oh, well, it's not equal to Q this time, but if I go down here to if time x is greater than Q, it is greater than Q, and I can actually look to see that x is equal to 4. It's greater than Q. It's going to print out the other pieces. And I've solved my logic error by using the debugging tools. I know what I did wrong. Debug, stop, and I've figured out my problem. Debugging will be very, very good for you. So hopefully this helps you out tremendously. This was using Spyder in Python and debugging tools to solve a simple logic error in the code. Thank you very much, and good programming.